Throughout history, many have met tragic ends, some swift, others cruel. These are the stories of those whose fates were sealed in blood, fire, and torment. From unimaginable torture to eerie, unexplained disappearances, these individuals endured horrors few could ever fathom. This is not a tale for the faint heart, so viewer discretion is advised. In the late 18th century, the discovery of the electrical current ushered in a new age in human development. For much of the enthusiastic population, electricity seemed to have supernatural qualities. It can make darkness disappear with light, animate machinery, and even possess some therapeutic qualities. But what if electricity could be used as a means to make execution faster and less painful? Such was the question of the electrical engineer Thomas Edison, who decided to construct the world's first electrical execution machine. He read news reports of individuals who died instantly after grabbing or touching electrified objects. Edison was also engaged in a bitter rivalry with his arch competitor, Westinghouse, who was outperforming Edison in the market. He needed a new invention which could use electricity not for life but for death. Even before the first prototype was given a name, the new method of execution was tested on animals. Some of the animals died quickly while others suffered painfully and protracted deaths. New York became the first state to greenlight the very first direct current electric chair. To witness this marvelous step in progress, the unfortunate person to be executed in the chair was William Kemmler, a convicted murderer sentenced to death. On August 6, 1890, William Kemmler dressed into his best clothes, ate breakfast, and was read his last prayers before being escorted out of the cell to the execution chamber. Waiting inside the execution chamber was the prison warden Durston, Thomas Edison, and his entourage of 17 witnesses. Kemmler sat in the wooden chair as the executioner strapped him in. He remained humble and told them to take their time fastening the restraints. Edison watched with enthusiasm. He believed the chair would perform beyond expectations, but Edison did not understand electrical execution as well as he thought. He never took into account that every person's body has its own level of resistance to direct current. In other words, direct current of electricity could kill some people quickly while others slowly and painful. The chair itself was powered by a steam-driven generator. The execution proceeded as scheduled. With Kemmler fastened to the electric chair and the sound of the steam engine humming, the large hand on the clock touched the final minute of the execution. Durston said, "Goodbye, William," and the switch was thrown. Kemmler immediately protruded forward, held in the chair by the straps, as nearly 1,000 volts coursed through his body for 17 seconds. The chair was turned off and Kemmler slumped forward dead. The crowd immediately applauded and announced that the progress had been made in civilization with the successful execution. Then, to everybody's horror, one spectator spotted Kemmler still breathing. The physician went to check on Kemmler and reportedly screamed, "Have the current turned on again, quick, no delay." This time the current was left on for 7 minutes, and a scene out of a horror movie unfolded. The blood vessels under his skin ruptured, causing him to bleed. A sizzling sound accompanied by the smell of burning flesh began to permeate the room. Then flames and smoke erupted from Kemmler as the fat in his body melted and burned. One witness was so nauseated by the horrible stench, he ran but passed out before making it outside of the chamber. Finally, after 8 minutes, the chair was turned off again, leaving the smoldering corpse of Kemmler strapped in his seat. The very first execution in the electric chair ironically became the very first botched electrocution in history. Kemmler's corpse was so badly burned that the morticians had to wait for 3 hours before they could perform the autopsy because it was still too hot. Once the body cooled down, they found that Kemmler's skull was carbonized and the top of his brain hardened. The New York Times described the execution as worse than hanging. Even Westinghouse was disgusted by the execution, stating that it would have been better had they used an axe on Kemmler. There's a stretch of lonely highway in Texas where the sun seems to sink into the horizon faster than anywhere else, and the cold night air wraps around you like a suffocating blanket. Locals call it the Devil's Creek. No one knows where the name came from, but everyone agrees there's something unsettling about it. The kind of place where the dark feels a little thicker, and the wind whispers things you're not sure you want to hear. On the night of January 31st, 1933, David Glenn Lewis was seen driving down this very highway. A man with no reason to be there, and yet he was. He was a local man after all, known for being a successful attorney, a loving father, and an overall grounded, dependable guy. But something was wrong that night. That's where the mystery begins. Earlier that week, David had left behind a series of strange breadcrumbs that no one could make any sense of. On January 28, his wife and daughter had gone out of town for a short trip, leaving him alone in their Amarillo house. David had the weekend to himself, but it should have just been another quiet, uneventful few days, except it wasn't. When his wife returned home, David was gone. Not just gone, his whole presence had vanished into thin air, leaving only the most bizarre clues behind. A half-prepared meal sat in the kitchen, as if he started cooking and suddenly decided to leave. His glasses, which he needed to see, were left neatly on the bedside table. A freshly recorded Super Bowl game, David's favorite, was playing on TV, unwatched. His wallet, keys, and jacket were missing, suggesting he had left the house with the intention of returning shortly, but he never came back. For days, his family and friends searched. The police were baffled. It didn't make sense. David had no reason to leave, no known enemies, no debts or scandals. He wasn't the type to get involved in something shady. He was just missing. Then the bizarre got even more disturbing. On February 1st, in the middle of the night, a call came into the police from the remote Devil's Creek Highway. A body had been found on the side of the road. The man had been struck by not one, but two vehicles, killed instantly. His clothes were unfamiliar, military style, combat boots, but there was no identification on him, no ID, no wallet, no keys. He just seemed to have walked onto the highway deliberately, as if waiting for something or someone. It wasn't until 11 years later, after countless dead ends, that authorities discovered the truth. That unidentified man was none other than David Clint Lewis. But here's where things get really strange. David had gone missing from his home in Amarillo, Texas on January 31st, but the spot where his body was found 200 miles away was Devil's Creek, a location with no apparent connection to his life. He wasn't known to have any reasons to be there. Even more unsettling was the fact that witnesses in Amarillo had reportedly seen David that same day, alive and well, running errands and visiting his office. To this day, no one knows what actually happened to David and what he was doing in the Devil's Creek. In the summer of 2003, Timothy Treadwell returned to Katamaya National Park in Alaska, just like he had for 13 summers before. Treadwell, a self-taught naturalist, was obsessed with grizzly bears. Unlike most people, he didn't just watch the bears from a safe distance, he lived among them, up close, documenting their behavior with his camera. To many, Timothy's actions seemed reckless. He believed he had a special connection with the bears, referring to them by name, claiming they trusted him. But as the summer ended and the bears prepared for hibernation, things started to change. The bears, normally well fed from summer's abundance of food was scarcer, and the animals' behavior became unpredictable. Timothy decided to stay a little longer in the wild, bringing his girlfriend Amy along. They set up camp deep in bear territory, far from the nearest ranger station. Despite the increasing danger, Timothy remained confident in his ability to handle the bears. But on October 5th, 2003, something went terribly wrong. Late at night, Starving Bear wandered into their campsite. This bear wasn't one of the bears Timothy had grown familiar with over the years. It was hungry and dangerous. As it approached the tent, it attacked. Timothy tried to fend it off, but the bear was relentless. Amy screamed, but the remote wilderness muffled their cries for help. Timothy had always filmed his encounters with the bears, and his camera was rolling during the attack, though it only captured audio. For 6 agonizing minutes, the sounds of a brutal struggle filled the tape. Growls, screams, and the sound of the bear dragging its prey into the night. Both Timothy and Amy were dead. The next day, the park rangers arrived at the site, after being alerted when the couple failed to check in. What they found was just horrifying. The campsite was destroyed, and the remains of Timothy and Amy were scattered around. The bear, still lingering near the scene, was shot and killed by rangers. An autopsy revealed that the bear had consumed parts of Timothy. The recordings from Timothy's camera were reviewed, and though no video footage was captured, the audio was enough to tell the story of their final moments. The bear attacked with a brutal force, and there was nothing either of them could do to stop it.